My dear friend, listen to me closely, because this is not just another message. This is a summons. October 20th isn't coming like any ordinary day. It's rushing toward you like a wave from heaven, carrying the weight of every unanswered prayer and every unspoken promise. Something sacred is moving. The air feels different. The clock of eternity is striking now. This is not hype, it's holy timing. October 20th is the moment heaven reveals what it's been preparing behind closed doors. For years, God has been aligning moments, shaping storms, and refining your spirit in silence. The pain, the pressure, the seasons of waiting, they were never punishment, they were preparation. And now the door with your name carved on it is unlocking. You felt it deep in your chest, that electric pulse that won't let you settle for average. That's not anxiety, that's destiny. It's heaven knocking, saying it's time. Time to rise, to believe again, to walk through the door that's been waiting for you. So when I say comment 777, I'm not asking for numbers, I'm asking for faith. It's a declaration that you're done shrinking and ready to step into what's yours. October 20th isn't just a date, it's the signal, the awakening, the moment your story shifts forever. Stay with me, because what's coming next will change the way you see your entire life. Beloved chosen ones, I want you to listen closely, because tonight I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to remind you of something sacred. You are not ordinary. You were never built for mediocrity or meant to blend in. You were born carrying the fingerprints of heaven. Deep inside you burns a spark of divine fire that refuses to die, no matter how many storms try to drown it out. That's why you've always felt a little out of place. You could stand in a crowd and still feel like you were standing alone, because your soul doesn't recognize the language of average. The fire in you comes from the one who created you, and that fire has been flickering beneath the surface, waiting for its appointed moment to rise. Every time you faced fear and didn't run, every time you fell and got back up, every time you spoke truth when your voice trembled, that was not chance, it was your divine nature revealing itself. Those were moments when heaven pulled back the curtain for just a second to show you who you really are. Some people think faith is loud, dramatic, or showy, but true faith is steady. It's what allows you to walk forward when nothing makes sense. It's what allows you to stand still when the world tells you to run. You are measured not by how many times you shout, but by how many times you rise. The world judges by numbers, applause, and recognition, but God looks at the flame within you. That's the difference between human validation and divine calling. God never asked you to be the loudest in the room. He asked you to be the one who burns quietly but never goes out. Now I want you to picture something with me. Somewhere in the unseen realm, there is a great ancient door. It has stood for generations, carved from time itself, and on that door is your name. Not printed, not painted, but engraved in gold letters that can never fade. It has been waiting for one thing, your faith to turn the key. October 20th is the moment when the latch begins to move, when the hinges creak open. And behind that door is everything that was promised to you: peace that can't be stolen, abundance that flows without end, and purpose so crystal clear that it makes sense of every confusion you've ever faced. But I know what happens when people stand before that kind of door. The same voice that has followed humanity since Eden begins to whisper again. It says, you're not ready, not worthy, not strong enough. It says, you failed too much, waited too long, or missed your chance. I've heard that voice too. It hides behind logic and calls itself caution, but it's fear wearing a disguise. Fear will always sound reasonable when you're close to your breakthrough. That voice doesn't come from God, because God never condemns the ones He's chosen. If He carved your name into the door, then He intends for you to walk through it. The invitation still stands. Think of Esther. She wasn't born into royalty. She didn't have a title or training. She was an orphan, a woman in a foreign land, a name nobody knew. But heaven had already written her into history. She could have kept quiet, blended in, or stayed safe. But when the moment came, she moved with faith. She didn't shout, she didn't demand, she acted. Her courage was silent but unstoppable. That's the kind of strength heaven recognizes, the kind that moves, even when afraid. Some of you are in your Esther moment right now. You've been placed in rooms you didn't plan to enter, among people you never expected to meet, facing decisions you never thought you'd have to make. God isn't asking for perfection. He's asking for obedience. Step forward, even when your knees shake. Step up, even when you don't have all the answers. Faith begins where comfort ends. And when that door opens, you won't need to force anything. That's the beauty of divine alignment. The world teaches you to hustle, to prove, to compete, but grace teaches you to trust. When the time is right, everything fits without struggle. You won't have to beg for opportunities. They'll recognize your name. You won't have to fight to be seen. Your light will make room for you. You won't have to demand attention. Your purpose will speak for itself. October 20th is not a call to strive harder. It's a call to surrender deeper. The path ahead has already been paved. You don't need to build it, you only need to walk it. That realization brings rest to the soul. You can stop trying to earn what was freely given. You can breathe again knowing that God's hands are steady even when yours are shaking. You don't have to control every detail. He already wrote the script. You just have to show up with a willing heart. The door won't open because of how strong you are. It will open because of how faithful He is. So even if your confidence feels small, bring it. Even if your faith feels fragile, offer it. God can work miracles with a mustard seed. And once you step through that door, something in your spirit changes. The fog that's been covering your vision begins to lift. The questions that haunted you start finding answers. You begin to see your past differently. The pieces that never made sense suddenly fit together. It's what I call the waterfall of truth. It doesn't drip slowly. It falls all at once, washing over you until the pain becomes purpose and the confusion becomes clarity. You realize that every detour was direction. Every delay was protection. Every failure was formation. God was never withholding. He was preparing. The things that once hurt you were the very things He used to strengthen you. That's why when revelation comes, it comes like rain. It doesn't sprinkle, it pours. You feel it in your chest, in your breath, in your bones. You finally see that the storms weren't meant to drown you, but to drive you deeper into His will. That's when gratitude replaces frustration, when peace replaces panic. You stop asking why me and start saying thank you for trusting me. The truth baptizes you in understanding, and the more you let it flow, the lighter you become. And what flows after truth is abundance. Not the kind this world advertises, but the kind that fills the soul. Abundance that steadies you. Instead of swelling your ego, abundance that lets you sleep at night because you're no longer chasing validation. You find yourself breathing deeper, loving harder, giving freer. You no longer live tight-fisted, afraid there won't be enough, because you realize the source never runs dry. The God who opened the door is also the God who sustains what's behind it. The overflow is not just for you. It's meant to spill into the lives of others. That's how the kingdom expands, through vessels who live open-handed. There's another layer to this piece. It's not just about material blessing or visible success. It's about wholeness. Some of you have been strong for so long that you forgot what rest feels like. You've been surviving, not living, but peace is coming to reclaim you. It will touch your mind, calming the noise. It will touch your body, restoring your strength. It will touch your spirit, realigning you with purpose. That's what's waiting on the other side of the door: balance, renewal, and clarity. Let me take you back to the story of Joseph. He had a dream so big it frightened people. His brothers threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and tried to erase him from memory. He was lied on, imprisoned, forgotten, but God never left the cell. Every place Joseph was thrown into was part of a larger design. The pit wasn't punishment, it was positioning. The prison wasn't defeat, it was discipline. When the time was right, God didn't just pull Joseph out, he lifted him up. The very ground that once held him captive became the foundation for his crown. That's what divine timing does. It turns the pit into a palace. It turns rejection into redirection. You may not have understood it while you were crying, but those tears were watering your harvest. Every unfair season built the muscle you'll need to handle the blessing. If Joseph had escaped early, he wouldn't have been ready for the weight of the throne. And if you had received your promise too soon, you would have called it a burden instead of a blessing. Preparation often feels like delay, but it's really mercy. God doesn't rush masterpieces. So here we are, October 20th, the moment when all the blueprints start to make sense. You'll look back and realize that the broken road was still holy ground. You'll see that every wrong turn still led home. Nothing was wasted. Every pain was a brick. Every closed door was part of the architecture of your purpose. Heaven doesn't build with perfection, it builds with redemption. That's why the palace stands firm. It's made from the pieces of everything that tried to break you. When destiny calls your name on that day, answer it with courage. Stand in front of the open door, knowing heaven has already cleared the path. Don't shrink to fit your old season. Don't apologize for the light that's finally breaking through you. Walk through it with authority, not arrogance, with confidence, not pride, because the one who called you will finish what he started. And when you cross that threshold, when you breathe the air of the new season, you'll understand what Joseph understood and what Esther embodied, that every wound was a window, every setback a setup, and every silence a signal that something sacred was being formed. October 20th isn't just another sunrise. It's the unveiling of who you've always been beneath the ashes. You are not broken, not forgotten, not behind. You are chosen, forged by fire, refined by faith, and ready for the favor waiting on the other side of that door. So when that moment comes, when destiny calls and the handle turns, don't freeze. Take a deep breath, straighten your shoulders, and say, "I'm ready, Lord. Let's walk through." Then step forward and watch how heaven rushes to meet you on the other side. My dear friends, there are seasons when life feels like a storm with no warning, when noise surrounds you and confusion tries to drown out the voice of truth. I've walked through those moments, and I know you have too. Chaos has a way of testing your core, your peace, your patience, your identity. But hear me, no storm is stronger than the one who holds you. The truth is, your shield. God's hand has been over you the whole time, guiding, guarding, and grounding you when everything else seemed unstable. You may not always feel him, but he never let go. That truth that God's got you is what stands between you and collapse. It's not the absence of trouble that defines faith. It's the presence of trust in the middle of it. When everything shakes, hold on to that one unshakable reality: he's still in control. Life, with all its twists and turns, is not a random canvas, it's a masterpiece in progress. Every stroke, the bright ones, the dark ones, the smudges you wish weren't there, they all belong to the design. You may look at your life and see mistakes, losses, or things you wish you could erase, but the artist sees dimension, contrast, and depth. October 20th is that moment when the light hits the canvas just right, when colors that once seemed dull begin to glow, and you finally understand what he's been painting all along. The struggles that nearly broke you become the shades that make your story shine. Nothing in his creation is wasted, not even your pain. And when that divine light touches what you thought was ruined, it turns scars into art, heartbreak into harmony, and chaos into beauty. You were never meant to live this journey alone. God created community for a reason. He placed people around you not to compete with you, but to complete the picture with you. You see, destiny is not a solo act, it's a symphony. And when you align with the right people, the sound of your faith grows louder, stronger, and clearer. When we walk together, darkness loses its echo. That's why I tell you to stay connected, to walk with others who remind you of who you are. There is power in agreement, strength in unity, and hope and shared faith. You're part of a family of believers walking the same narrow road, each of us carrying light for the other when someone's flame flickers low. But remember this, even when heaven opens doors, they don't walk themselves. Favor creates opportunity, but faith requires movement. God may turn the key, but you must take the step. The blessing is real, but it doesn't work without obedience. You can't stand at the threshold forever, waiting for certainty. At some point, you've got to move. You've got to trust that if he brought you this far, he's not going to let you fall now. You've been praying for open doors, and when they swing wide, that's your cue. Step through. Don't overthink it. Don't second guess it. Just go. The future belongs to the ones who dare to move when fear says freeze. And when I talk about faith, I can't help but think of David standing before Goliath. That young man wasn't supposed to win. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He had no armor, no experience, and no approval from those around him. But he had something stronger. A slingshot and faith. The world saw a boy, God saw a warrior. The world saw weakness. God saw a weapon. That's you. You've been looking at what you lack, but heaven's been looking at what you carry. Your slingshot might be your voice, your gift, your compassion, or your endurance. It might look small in your hands, but when faith pulls it back, it becomes unstoppable. Goliath fell not because David was powerful, but because David believed. The weapon wasn't in his hands, it was in his heart. And that's where your power is too. Now, when you start walking in that kind of faith, something shifts. You begin to glow. I don't mean the kind of glow the world talks about, the superficial shine of success or applause. I mean the light that comes from within, the kind that no circumstance can dim. Your transformation becomes a signal, a beacon for others still lost in their storms. They see your peace and wonder how you kept it. They see your joy and can't explain it. That's not luck. That's the signature of God on your life. When he works in you, he doesn't just bless you, he marks you. There's a light in your eyes, a calm in your step, a steadiness in your soul. And that glow is not for you to hide, it's for you to carry into every room, every conversation, every broken place. But before your light shines, you have to silence the lies that try to dim it. The world will tell you you're too late, too small, too damaged, too far behind. The enemy will whisper that your best days are over, that your mistakes have disqualified you. Don't you believe it? Those lies are built to cage your calling. They sound convincing because they echo your fears. But truth and fear cannot share the same space. You've got to decide which one you'll listen to. The truth says you're chosen even when you feel forgotten. The truth says you're equipped even when you feel empty. The truth says you're right on time because God's timing never misses. You're not a mistake, you're a mission. And October 20th is the day you stop agreeing with lies that never came from heaven. You see, this glow I'm talking about is not something you can earn or manufacture. It's evidence that God has been working in you even when you didn't see results. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, the glow grew. Every time you kept faith, when it would have been easier to quit, it brightened. Every act of quiet obedience added another layer of light to your life. And now, as this season unfolds, that glow is ready to blaze steady. It's no longer a flicker in the dark, it's a flame that guides others home. People will look at you and see what happens when God takes over a willing heart. This glow isn't fleeting. It doesn't fade when circumstances change, because it's not built on circumstance, it's built on Christ. The peace you carry won't vanish when the storm comes back around. The joy you feel won't evaporate when life gets hard again. The fire God places inside you is eternal. It's his fingerprint on your soul, proof that his spirit lives and breathes in you. You can lose possessions, positions, or people, but you can't lose his presence. And once you've tasted that kind of peace, nothing else will satisfy. October 20th marks the moment when that light stabilizes, when the flickering becomes steady flame. You've gone through seasons of doubt, times when your fire dimmed, when you wondered if the spark was gone. But this is the season of renewal. God is reigniting what life tried to smother. The same spirit that lifted Jesus from the grave is breathing in you right now, fueling your purpose, your strength, your faith. The glow that once seemed fragile becomes a beacon so strong that darkness can't approach it without breaking. And as you shine, others will begin to see the way forward. But let's take it further. This transformation you're living out, it's not just about your happiness or your personal victory. It's about eternity. The things of this world fade, the applause, the titles, the possessions, but what God does in you lasts forever. Every act of faith echoes through generations. Every time you choose hope over fear, you're building a legacy heaven can't erase. This is what it means to move from the temporary to the eternal. October 20th is not about chasing the fleeting light of success. It's about stepping into the eternal glow of divine purpose. And while you walk this path, remember to call others alongside you. Invite them into the journey. We were never meant to guard our light. We're meant to multiply it. The world needs your testimony, your courage, your hope. The community of the chosen doesn't just inspire, it ignites. When one light shines, it's beautiful. When many shine together, it becomes a dawn that breaks the night. So lift your head, chosen one. This is your time to rise, to walk boldly through the noise, to let your faith be seen, and to live as proof that God's hand is still creating masterpieces from chaos. You faced the storms, but now you're walking out as light. You've silenced the lies, and now your truth speaks louder than words. You've been refined in the fire, and now you carry its glow. This is not the end, it's the unveiling. You are not just surviving anymore, you're shining. And when people ask you how you did it, tell them the truth. I didn't. God did. Chosen ones. There comes a point in every believer's life when the fire inside can no longer stay contained. You felt it before, that quiet burn deep within your chest, the pull to do something greater, to love harder, to shine brighter than your surroundings. That's not ambition, that's divine ignition. It's the spark of heaven that refuses to die, the same light that once hovered over the dark void and said, "Let there be." And tonight I'm here to tell you, let there be again. Let there be light in your voice, in your hands, in your story, because the world isn't waiting for more noise. It's waiting for light. The fire within you was never meant to be a secret. It was meant to illuminate. You may not feel qualified to carry that fire. You may look at your scars and see reasons why you can't be used. But God doesn't look for perfection, He looks for permission. He takes what the world calls broken and turns it into a beacon for others. Your story, the pain, the faith, the moments you survived, what should have destroyed you is a lifeline for someone else still drowning. You think you're just surviving, but God's using your endurance as testimony. Every time you choose faith over fear, hope over despair, you're preaching without words. Somebody out there is watching your resilience and realizing that God hasn't given up on them either. Moses knew what that felt like. He wasn't polished. He wasn't confident. He stuttered, he doubted, he ran from his past. Yet God called his name anyway. When Moses said, "Who am I?" God didn't give him a resume. He gave him a promise. He said, "I will be with you." That's all you need. You see, God doesn't eliminate your flaws before He uses you. He works through them. Your imperfection becomes the canvas for His glory. Your weakness becomes the megaphone for His power. Moses' speech problem didn't disqualify him. It magnified the miracle when his words became the instrument that set a nation free. The same applies to you. Don't wait to be perfect to move. Move and watch how perfection finds you in obedience. And when you start walking in that obedience, something extraordinary happens. The veil begins to lift. The confusion that once clouded your steps starts to clear. Suddenly, opportunities that were hidden reveal themselves. Connections that felt impossible start falling into place. Doors you didn't even know existed begin to open, not because you forced them, but because faith turned the key. You begin to see what's been there all along, a path, prepared, a plan unfolding, a purpose far greater than the pain that preceded it. God's timing was never off. Your sight was simply not ready. But now, as He removes the veil, the horizon sharpens and the path becomes clear. You don't have to chase clarity when you're walking with the Creator of it. Still, as the light increases, so does resistance. That's why you must wear your armor. Scripture says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. It doesn't say no weapon will form, it says it won't prosper. The attack may come, but it will not win. The shield of faith, the belt of truth, the helmet of salvation, these aren't metaphors for Sunday school. They are survival gear for chosen ones. When doubt tries to pierce your peace, lift your shield. When lies try to chain your mind, fasten your helmet. When the enemy tries to convince you that you're unworthy, tighten your belt with truth and remember who sent you. You are armed, not with fear, but with favor. You are protected, not because you're strong, but because you're His. And that armor, it's not just for defense, it's for demonstration. Every battle you withstand becomes a declaration of who your God is. Every time the storm hits and you're still standing, the world sees a living sermon. You are not defined by what you avoid. You are defined by what you overcome. The weapons may form, but they will fail. You'll come out of every fight not just surviving, but shining your faith sharper, your courage louder, your testimony stronger. That's the kind of life that preaches louder than any pulpit ever could. Your life is meant to be living evidence of God's power and love. You are His proof on earth that miracles are still real. Every smile after sorrow, every step after setback, every breath after heartbreak, it all testifies. You don't have to shout about God's goodness when you embody it. When you walk in peace, the world can't understand. People notice. When you choose love in a culture obsessed with hate, people listen. When you remain hopeful, while everything around you crumbles, people start to wonder where that strength comes from. That's how faith spreads through lives so changed that they make others hunger for the same transformation. And what God has for you isn't scarcity, it's overflow. You've been surviving on crumbs for too long, when heaven's table has been set with abundance. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about a wealth that reaches deeper, the richness of joy, the strength of mind, the calm of spirit, the confidence that comes from knowing you're walking in divine alignment. This is sustainable abundance. The kind that doesn't vanish with circumstances. It's the peace that doesn't fade when the storm returns. It's the joy that doesn't depend on applause. It's the fulfillment that flows from living in purpose. Do you remember the woman at the well? She came for water at the hottest part of the day because she didn't want to be seen. She was tired of judgment, tired of hiding, tired of thirsting for something this world could never satisfy. But that day she met Jesus and everything changed. He didn't give her what she came for. He gave her what she didn't know she needed. He said, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water I give will never thirst. That's living water, the kind that fills you so deeply that no emptiness can survive. She left that well different, not because her circumstances changed immediately, but because her soul was finally full. Some of you have been coming to your own wells of approval, success, relationships, distractions, trying to quench a thirst only God can satisfy. And He's standing right beside you, offering water that never runs dry. He's saying, you don't need to keep drawing from empty wells. Drink from me. When you do, everything shifts. Your hunger for validation fails. Your fear of lack dissolves. Your anxiety loses its grip. Because when your soul drinks from living water, you stop striving and start flowing. The same spirit that filled that woman now fills you, overflowing into every corner of your life until the people around you can taste the presence of God just by being near you. That's what true abundance looks like, not more things, but more meaning. It's when your blessings start blessing others, when your peace becomes contagious, when your faith becomes the doorway through which others find their own. That's the purpose of the fire within you and the water that sustains it, to illuminate, to refresh, to give life. So I'm telling you tonight, the fire in you was never meant to stay small. Let it burn. Let it light the path for others still walking through the dark. And as you burn, stay filled with the water that never runs out, because a flame without the Spirit becomes smoke, but a flame fed by living water becomes unstoppable. You are that light. You are that vessel. You are that living proof that God still works through imperfect people to show perfect love. Keep burning, keep believing, keep flowing, because when heaven's fire meets living water, the world can't stay the same. Chosen ones, do you know you don't have to stand behind a pulpit to preach the gospel? Sometimes the loudest sermon is the way you live. Your life itself can become the evidence that God is real, that His power is present, and that His love still transforms the broken into the beautiful. People are watching you more than they're listening to you. They see how you respond when life pushes you to the edge, how you rise after being knocked down, how you love, even when you're hurting. That's the kind of testimony no words can outshine. You may never quote a verse on a stage, but your forgiveness in the face of betrayal preaches. Your peace when the world is chaotic preaches. Your resilience when everything falls apart preaches. You are a living testimony, walking, breathing, proof of grace. When your heart belongs to God, your life naturally overflows. You start to experience abundance not as a temporary blessing, but as a permanent state of being. And I'm not talking about shallow abundance, the kind measured by things that rust and fade. I'm talking about spiritual wealth that never dries up. It's that kind of peace that holds you when you can't hold yourself. It's the joy that refuses to be stolen, no matter how heavy the day gets. It's the fulfillment that rises from deep within, built not on circumstances, but on connection to the source. God's abundance is not a reward for your effort. It's a reflection of your alignment. When you're in sync with His will, the overflow comes naturally. You breathe easier, give freely, and love deeply because you know your supply is eternal. Think back to the woman at the well. She came tired, isolated, and ashamed, just trying to fill her jar and disappear. But Jesus met her there, not to judge her, but to change her thirst. He said, "Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water I give will never thirst." She came for ordinary water and left with living water. What she couldn't find in people or possessions, she found in a conversation with the Savior. That's what happens when grace meets emptiness. It fills it with eternity. Many of you have been chasing temporary wells, drinking from success, approval, or distraction, only to end up thirsty again. But God's calling you to the living water, to stop drawing from things that can't sustain you and drink from the source that never runs dry. And when you do something miraculous happens. Your life becomes a stream that refreshes others. The same water that quenched your soul begins to flow out of you, nourishing everyone you touch. That's what makes faith contagious. You become the well for others who are wandering dry and lost. The woman at the well ran back to her village shouting, "Come see a man who told me everything I ever did." She didn't have credentials or training. She just had an encounter, and that was enough to spark revival. One transformed soul can transform a city. One life lit by grace can ignite generations. Because this is bigger than just you. What God is doing in your life right now isn't just personal, it's generational. The blessings He's preparing are not meant to end with you, they're meant to flow through you. The legacy of faith you build will outlast your lifetime. The seeds you're planting in obedience will grow into trees that shelter your children, your family, and even people you'll never meet. That's the beauty of divine inheritance. It multiplies. Each act of trust today becomes a seed of blessing tomorrow. What feels small right now will one day be someone else's miracle. That's how legacy works. Faith is a lineage. When you trust God, you're not just writing your story, you're setting the stage for those who come after you. You're building a foundation for your children to stand taller, to walk freer, to believe sooner. You're breaking patterns that tried to repeat through generations, and you're creating new ones rooted in hope. October 20th isn't just a day of personal transformation, it's a turning point for your bloodline. The curses that chained your ancestors stop here. The blessings that seemed delayed begin here. You are the bridge between what was and what's about to be. That's what the shift is all about. The holy transition from doubt to trust, from fear to faith, from surviving to thriving. God's been aligning your gifts, weaving them into a tapestry of divine purpose. Every talent, every lesson, every trial, every victory, they're all strands of the same thread. And now they're coming together into a pattern you couldn't see before. The plan was never random. It was orchestration. God was composing something in you, something that harmonizes every piece of your life into a melody of victory. What you once called failure, he now calls foundation. What you once called loss, he calls preparation. It's all been leading here. Now is the moment to rise. The world doesn't need another spectator. It needs participants of faith. You've waited long enough for permission. God already gave it to you. The time for hesitation is over. You've been through enough proving grounds. Now it's time for manifestation. Heaven isn't asking if you're ready. It's declaring that you are. You've been refined, stretched, tested, and strengthened for this very moment. So lift your head, square your shoulders, and step forward. The light inside you is not meant to stay hidden any longer. And when you rise, rise free. Not fragile freedom that depends on things going right, but real freedom, the kind that stands unshaken when life falls apart. That's what Christ offers, liberty that doesn't expire when storms return. This freedom isn't about escape. It's about empowerment. It's the unbreakable truth that no chain of fear, shame, or regret can hold you anymore. You've spent too long carrying weights that God already broke. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, guilt over your past, they're not your chains anymore. The key's been turned, the prison door's open, and heaven's saying, walk out. Look at Paul and Silas. Two men chained in a prison cell, beaten and forgotten. They could have given up, could have cursed the darkness, but instead they praised. They sang hymns at midnight, their voices echoing against cold stone walls. And in that moment of surrender, the ground started to shake, the doors flew open, and their chains fell off. That's the power of praise in the middle of pressure. They didn't wait for freedom to sing, they sang until freedom came. Their worship wasn't a reaction, it was a weapon. And that same weapon is in your mouth tonight. You don't have to wait for conditions to change before you lift your song. Praise right where you are. Thank him in the waiting and the confusion and the pain. Because praise doesn't just change your atmosphere, it changes your posture. It reminds your spirit that God's still bigger than the prison you're in. When you start to sing in the middle of your struggle, heaven begins to move. The enemy loses power because your praise declares that your faith is still alive. Chains break not because of volume, but because of trust. That's what real freedom looks like. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of divine strength within it. You're not fragile, you're fortified. You've been through fire and didn't burn. You've been through storms and didn't drown. You've been through loss and didn't lose yourself. That's because freedom in Christ isn't a feeling, it's a fact. The enemy can't touch what's already been redeemed. You walk in proof that grace still works, that God still rescues, and that faith still shakes prison walls. So, hear me when I say this. Your breakthrough isn't coming, it's happening. The ground beneath your feet is already trembling with change. The doors you thought were sealed are unlocking even now. The shift has begun, and it won't stop with you. The echo of your praise, your courage, your obedience, it will ripple through generations. You're not just being freed, You're setting others free by your example. You're not just living for yourself, you're living for the legacy of light that will follow. When people look at you from this point forward, may they see a walking miracle. May they see someone who's tasted living water and carries it everywhere they go. May they see a person whose peace can't be stolen, whose joy can't be silenced, whose freedom can't be undone. That's who you are now. A vessel of abundance, a carrier of freedom, a lighthouse for the lost. October 20th isn't just another date. It's a declaration. It's the day heaven said, enough waiting. Rise. It's the day you step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be living. Proof of divine power, walking in unshakable freedom, singing even while the world shakes around you. And when the story of your life is told, let it be said that when the walls closed in, you didn't quit, you praised. When the chains tightened, you didn't hide, you rose. And because you did, generations will know what real freedom looks like. Beloved chosen ones, there comes a time in your journey with God when you must stop apologizing for your light. You have spent too many years dimming your flame so that others could stay comfortable in their shadows. You have hidden the brilliance that heaven placed in you because you were afraid of being misunderstood or judged. But that season is over. You are not called to blend into the background. You are called to illuminate the darkness. You are not meant to fit in with the crowd. You are meant to stand apart as proof that the hand of God is still at work in his people. The same voice that spoke galaxies into existence placed that same creative spark inside of you. You were never meant to flicker quietly. You were born to burn brightly. The world does not need another echo of fear. It needs a reflection of faith. So this is the time to stop saying sorry for being radiant. This is the hour to let your light blaze unapologetically, because your glow is not arrogance, it is obedience. Every promise God has spoken over your life is shifting from the unseen into the visible. The words he whispered into your spirit in secret are now rising from your heart into reality. You have carried them through wilderness seasons, guarded them through heartbreak, and watered them with your tears. You have held them close when everyone else stopped believing. But now the hour has come. Heaven's calendar has reached the appointed time. What once felt buried under delay and disappointment is breaking through the soil of waiting. Those prayers you thought were forgotten were actually seeds in the ground. Every delay was divine design. You see, the right time is never just about what you are waiting for. It is about who you are becoming while you wait. God has been shaping you to hold the very blessing you prayed for. Now that the refining is complete, the promise is ready to live outside of you. It is no longer just a vision inside your spirit. It is about to manifest before your eyes. But when it comes, remember this truth: blessings are not meant to stop with you. You were never meant to hoard favor. You were designed to distribute it. You are blessed to be a blessing, chosen to be a channel through which heaven touches earth. Every miracle, every open door, every breakthrough that finds you is meant to flow through you. That is how divine abundance works. When you live open-handed, nothing can run out. The more you pour into others, the more God fills you again. You do not need to protect the blessing when the source himself is endless. When you step into this new season, do not ask, what can I gain, but whom can I serve? The power of your purpose is always connected to people. Your calling is not about accumulation, it is about transformation. Your gratitude becomes generosity, and your testimony becomes someone else's hope. To live that out, you must embrace your true identity. Stop hiding behind false humility and fear of rejection. You are not the labels they gave you, not the mistakes you made, not the opinions that tried to define you. You are the reflection of a divine creator who shaped you with intention and breathed purpose into your lungs. Walk like it. Talk like it. Believe it. Stand tall in the truth of who you are, chosen, redeemed, and unshakable. Do not shrink to make others feel secure. Do not silence your truth to win approval. Do not mute your dreams to meet their comfort. You were not placed here to impress anyone. You were sent to reveal something holy. God's masterpiece cannot stay covered forever. And what He is unveiling through you is nothing short of glory. For years, you have lived under layers of fear, insecurity, comparison, and doubt. But now heaven is lifting the veil. God is peeling away everything that tried to disguise your true reflection. Beneath every scar is strength. Beneath every tear is wisdom. Beneath every wound is proof of His presence. You are the evidence that grace still redeems and that mercy still restores. Every broken piece in your life is being arranged into divine order. The same hands that molded you from dust are now shaping your destiny from fragments. You are the canvas and He is the artist, and the unveiling is now. When people look at you, they will see more than your accomplishments. They will see the fingerprints of God on your life. The glory does not rest on you, it radiates through you. And you are not walking this road alone. Look around you, there is a movement rising. Shoulder to shoulder, chosen souls are stepping out of their caves, walking in the same rhythm of grace. This is not a solitary mission, it is a collective calling. You are part of a holy assembly, a chorus of voices that refuses to stay silent. Each of you carries a light, and together you form a dawn that no darkness can resist. This is the generation of the awakened, those who have been refined in fire, but come forth shining brighter. When you rise, you give others permission to rise too. When you walk in freedom, you open paths for others to follow. You are part of a divine family woven together by purpose, faith, and endurance. Now the season of harvest is here. The time of reaping has begun. You have sown with tears. You will now reap with joy. The fields you once walked through in faith are ripe with fulfillment. The prayers you thought vanished into silence were watering the ground beneath your feet. Every lonely moment, every act of obedience, every hidden sacrifice was not in vain. Think of Ruth, the woman who gleaned in the fields without knowing that destiny was watching her. She didn't chase recognition, she simply showed up faithful in small things. And in her faithfulness, God aligned her with favor. That is what is happening now. Your consistency in the quiet seasons has qualified you for abundance in the visible ones. You were not overlooked, you were being prepared for overflow. The harvest is personal, but it is also purposeful. What is coming to you carries the fingerprints of eternity, and with that harvest comes new doors. Doors engraved with your name. You have knocked on many doors that stayed closed, cried over ones that refused to open, and questioned if any were meant for you. But those weren't your doors. They belonged to someone else's assignment. The ones meant for you are opening now, not through effort, but through alignment. These are doors that fit your spirit, your purpose, your preparation. You won't have to force them open. They will swing wide because God Himself holds the handle. When you walk through, peace will meet you there. Opportunity will recognize you. The weight of striving will lift because what belongs to you will no longer resist you. Every closed door before this was protection, not punishment. And the enemy, he's already defeated. He's been trying to convince you that your delays were denials, that your setbacks were signs of failure, but he's out of power. He cannot stop what heaven has set in motion. His greatest fear was never your weakness. It was your awakening. Because when a chosen one remembers who they are, the kingdom of darkness trembles. You have been fought not because you were weak, but because you were dangerous to the enemy's plans. Every weapon formed against you has failed. Every lie whispered against you has lost its voice. You are not fighting for victory. You are walking from it. God has already sealed your triumph, and no force on earth can reverse it. This is your unveiling. This is your harvest. This is your moment to step forward, unafraid and unashamed. Stop hiding. Stop waiting for permission to be what God already declared you to be. The masterpiece is ready. The curtain is rising. The doors are opening. The season has arrived where everything God promised will come alive before your eyes. You are not here to survive the light. You are here to carry it, to spread it, to become it. When the world looks at you, they will see what happens when heaven finishes what it started. The masterpiece stands revealed. The harvest flows in. The chosen rise together. And the doors with your name carved upon them swing wide, declaring that the time is now and your purpose is here to stay. Chosen ones. There is a kind of joy that doesn't make sense to the world. A joy that stays steady when the ground shakes, that smiles through tears, that sings even when the sky is dark. It's not loud, it's not boastful, but it's rooted deep like a tree planted beside eternal waters. That's the kind of joy heaven gives. The kind that doesn't depend on what's happening around you, but on what's happening within you. You can't buy it, fake it, or manufacture it. It comes from knowing that no matter what changes, God remains the same. When everything around you shifts, His presence is still your anchor. That is why joy, built on Christ, can't be stolen. Happiness comes and goes with circumstance, but joy is a foundation. It's the quiet strength that carries you when your strength runs out. When that kind of joy takes root, you become more than a survivor. You become a creator of change. You stop reacting to the world and you start reshaping it. The light in you begins to push back the darkness around you. You become the force of good that this broken world desperately needs. God didn't just choose you to endure, He chose you to influence. You are a catalyst for healing, for hope, for transformation. Every act of kindness, every word of truth, every step of faith sends ripples through eternity. The world might not clap for you, but heaven stands in applause each time you choose love over hate, peace over chaos, forgiveness over bitterness. You are not here by coincidence. You are here by divine assignment to tilt the world a little closer to heaven every day. October 10th was not a random date, it was a starting line. The signal from heaven that your new chapter had begun. That moment marked the beginning of your call being revealed. The tug in your spirit, the stirring in your heart, the restlessness that kept you awake, it wasn't confusion, it was calling. God has been whispering, it's time. Time to move from waiting to walking, from hearing to doing, from dreaming to manifesting. You don't need a perfect plan, you just need a willing heart. Because when heaven calls, obedience is greater than understanding. October 10th is not just a marker in time, it's a declaration from God that your purpose has crossed into activation. But as you walk forward, the noise of the world will try to pull you off frequency. You will hear voices, some of doubt, some of fear, some of distraction. They'll tell you to slow down, to second guess, to compromise. That's when you must tune your soul to the right frequency. The voice of God is not in the chaos, it's in the calm. It's not in the earthquake or the fire, but in the still small whisper that speaks peace to your spirit. You must learn to lock out the noise, to quiet the confusion long enough to hear the truth again. Silence is not absence, it's alignment. It's where revelation speaks the loudest. When you live tuned to heaven's frequency, clarity becomes your compass and peace becomes your proof. And that clarity will teach you to walk in the light boldly, openly, unapologetically. You don't have to hide your faith anymore. You don't have to keep your identity as a chosen one tucked away, afraid of judgment or misunderstanding. The time for quiet belief has passed. Now is the hour for visible conviction. The world is full of imitation, light, temporary, artificial, and fading. What it needs is authentic illumination. You are that light. When you live truthfully, when you love deeply, when you stand unshaken in integrity, you reflect the very heart of God. Don't be afraid to let your life preach. You are not called to perfection, but to authenticity. Your transparency becomes your testimony. When people see you live free, when they see peace radiate from your presence, they begin to wonder about the source, and that's when heaven gets their attention. Understand this, the most powerful things in the kingdom are often the quietest. The wind that parts seas doesn't always roar. Sometimes it moves as a whisper. The same is true for the power God placed inside you. It may not look dramatic or loud, but it is unstoppable. You might not even notice it at work, but every step you take in obedience shakes unseen realms. Every time you pray when you feel weary, forgive when you'd rather hold a grudge, or speak life when you could have stayed silent, that's power moving. It's key power, but it's not weak. It's eternal. The kind of power that topples strongholds, mends hearts, and changes generations without making a sound. That's how the kingdom moves, not through spectacle, but through surrender. The greatest miracles don't always happen on stages, they happen in hearts. And maybe that's what God has been showing you all along, that your life doesn't need to shout to speak. Your obedience is the sermon. Your patience is the testimony. Your peace is the proof. The Spirit of God doesn't need an audience to perform. He just needs agreement. And when your will aligns with His, that's when heaven touches earth. That's when invisible power becomes visible fruit. You might not see yourself as extraordinary, but heaven does. You might not feel qualified, but the anointing has never depended on feelings. Power doesn't always announce itself, it simply flows. It's in your presence when you walk into a room, in your words, when you speak truth gently but firmly in your hands, when you help someone who can't repay you. You are carrying something that cannot be stopped. The world might overlook you, but hell can't ignore you. That's what divine authority looks like, quiet but undefeated, unseen but undeniable. So walk in that truth. Let your life be the evidence that God still works through those who listen, love, and live like they believe. Let your calm confuse the anxious. Let your faith steady the fearful. Let your consistency remind the world that hope is still alive. You don't need a title, a stage, or recognition. All you need is authenticity. The power inside you doesn't need an audience. It just needs release. And when it's released, the light of your life will speak louder than any sermon ever could. You are not just living your story, you are shaping history. Every act of courage, every choice to stand firm in grace, every moment you choose faith over fear, it echoes. The world will see your quiet strength and know that something greater lives within you. That's the beauty of this calling. It's not about being seen, it's about being significant. Your obedience becomes legacy. Your faith becomes foundation. Your life becomes a message that keeps speaking even when you're gone. That's what it means to live as a chosen one. That's what it means to carry silent power, the kind the world can't explain but can never deny. My dear friends, the future is not a faraway dream waiting for the right time to begin. It is unfolding right now, here in this very moment. Every breath you take, every step you choose in faith, every small act of obedience is shaping what comes next. God is not distant waiting somewhere ahead in time. He is present in your today. What you once believed was delayed is actually developing. The unseen work of heaven is taking form before your eyes. You are standing in the middle of a divine unveiling where promises are not only whispered but revealed. What was once hidden is being brought into light, and what was once a hope is now a reality in motion. God is aligning events, connecting people, opening unseen paths, and preparing circumstances that match His timing perfectly. The future is not something that might happen. It is being written into your present, moment by moment, choice by choice. To enter this new chapter, you must first step out of the limitations that have kept you contained. The boundaries you accepted as unchangeable were never set by God. You have been living inside a box built by fear, the opinions of others, and the weight of past disappointments. You have mistaken comfort for peace and routine for purpose. God is calling you out of that enclosure and into expansion. He is saying, come out from the safety of the familiar, because the life you prayed for is not inside that box. It exists beyond the line of what feels safe. The walls that once protected you are now restricting you. The place that once was preparation has become confinement. To see what is waiting, you have to move beyond what you know. Do not let fear disguise itself as wisdom. The path ahead will not be comfortable, but it will be holy. What you will find outside that box is not chaos, it is calling. And as you step forward, peace must become your anchor. Peace is not the absence of hardship. It is the presence of assurance. It does not erase the storm, but it holds you steady in the middle of it. You will still face uncertainty, but peace will keep you from sinking into panic. You will still feel pressure, but peace will keep your heart from breaking. This peace is not weak or temporary. It is divine. It does not depend on circumstances being perfect. It flows from knowing who holds the outcome. When you rest in the presence of God, the noise of the world loses its grip on your soul. That is the peace that surpasses understanding. It does not have to make sense to sustain you. It just has to be real in you. You are not promised a calm sea, but you are promised a steady anchor. That anchor of peace comes from knowing that you are never walking alone. God's presence is not something you have to search for. It has been beside you all along. He has been there in the places where you thought you were abandoned. He was there in the silence, watching over you, guarding you when you did not have strength to guard yourself. His quiet was not distance. It was protection. Every unanswered prayer was an act of mercy, every delay a moment of preparation. If you could see from heaven's perspective, you would realize he was not late. He was guarding you from walking through doors that were not yours. When you look back, you will see his fingerprints over every closed opportunity, every disappointment, and every redirection. Even when you could not trace him, he was there. The peace you feel when you remember that is the proof of his nearness. You need to know that you are loved, chosen, and called. You were not placed here randomly. You are not the result of chance or accident. Before time began, God had your name written into his plan. Every detail of who you are, the strengths you carry, the dreams in your heart, the burdens that have shaped you was woven together by divine intention. You are not forgotten or overlooked. You are the fulfillment of a promise. You were chosen not because of perfection, but because of purpose. The same hand that created galaxies and oceans also wrote your assignment. You do not need to chase acceptance when you were created from love itself. When you rest in the truth that you are loved without condition, chosen without comparison, and called without competition, striving loses its power. The peace that comes from that knowledge changes everything. God is not only present in your story, he is the author of it. Every chapter you have lived, even the ones you would rather erase, has meaning in his composition. He does not waste pain or failure. What looks like chaos to you is order to him. What feels unfinished is already completed in his plan. Every twist and turn in your life was written to build wisdom, endurance, and faith. You may be standing in the middle of a chapter that feels confusing, but the author has already written the ending. He knows how each piece fits, and none of it is random. When you trust him as the writer of your life, you stop trying to control the pen. You stop rushing ahead and start reading the story with patience. The pauses, the silence, the waiting, all of it has purpose. God is creating a masterpiece, and when he reveals the final pages, you will see how every word was necessary. Now the doors that belong to you are opening. You do not need to knock them down or beg them to unlock. These are doors that God himself designed for you. Doors that fit who you have become, not who you were. Every rejection you faced was not denial. It was redirection. The opportunities that passed you by were never meant to define you. The right doors open not through pressure, but through peace. When you find them, you will know the air will shift, the burden will lift, and your spirit will recognize home. These doors carry your name, and they are being opened by divine timing. What is meant for you will never require manipulation. No person can close what God opens. No circumstance can undo what heaven has set in motion. You will walk through those doors not because of luck, but because of alignment. The timing is perfect, even if it did not feel like it while you were waiting. God has not forgotten your prayers. He has been synchronizing them with His purpose. You may have thought you were behind schedule, but heaven has always been on time. The season you are stepping into is sacred. It is where preparation meets opportunity and where faith becomes fulfillment. Every tear watered the soil. Every struggle built the strength you will now need. The delays trained you to depend on God, not your timeline. You are stepping into divine acceleration, and everything that once moved slowly will begin to unfold quickly. The waiting season is ending and the unveiling season has begun. And in this divine moment, God speaks one word now. Not later, not tomorrow, not eventually. Now. This is the word that ignites everything. When God says now, no force can resist it, the shift does not ask permission. It happens in an instant. What was hidden begins to shine. What was planted begins to bloom. What was held back is released. When God declares now, the impossible becomes visible. This is not a rehearsal, this is revelation. The same God who prepared you in private is about to confirm you in public. The same hands that molded you in secret are about to place you in sight. So lift your head and take your place. The future is not something you are waiting to reach. It is something you are walking through. The present moment holds eternal significance. You are living in the very now of God, the intersection where faith meets fulfillment. Peace is your anchor, love is your foundation, and purpose is your path. The author of your life is smiling because he knows that everything he wrote is coming to pass. This is the hour when the unseen becomes undeniable, when the closed doors open, and when the promise steps out of the shadows. The word of the Lord is simple and strong now. The time is now, and nothing can stop what he has begun. My dear friends, there comes a point in your walk with God when you stop chasing and start receiving. You realize that what belongs to you was never meant to be pursued through exhaustion, but received through alignment. The blessing is not something you have to run after. It's something that runs toward you when you stand where God told you to stand. Too often we tire ourselves out trying to make things happen, thinking the harder we push, the closer we'll get. But divine provision doesn't work that way. The doors of heaven don't open through desperation, they open through faith. You don't have to fight to be found by what was always meant for you. When your hands stop grasping, they become open to receive. This is what it means to walk in trust, to stop chasing after what you already carry inside you. When you rest in His presence, you magnetize His favor. The moment you stop striving is the moment the flow begins. You don't earn grace, you inherit it. You don't force destiny, you align with it. When you live from that place of rest and faith, you begin to see the bigger picture, the divine map of your journey that's been unfolding all along. Looking back, you realize that the moments that felt like detours were actually directions. The heartbreaks were not endings, they were redirections. Every valley was preparation for a higher peak. God's guidance was not random, it was precise. You've been walking along a path designed with intention, even when it felt uncertain. The map has always been there, drawn by the same hand that holds the stars in place. The path you're on is not a mistake. It's a masterpiece in progress. Sometimes we only see fragments, but heaven sees the whole route. Each season had its purpose, some to strengthen you, some to stretch you, and some to show you that faith was never about seeing but trusting. And now the promises you've carried are beginning to stir. What's been dormant is waking up. The word that God planted in your spirit is breaking through the soil. You can feel it in the air, the shift, the acceleration, the sense that something long expected is finally taking shape. It's the beginning of a season of overflow. Not the shallow kind that fades, but the deep kind that sustains. You've entered the time where what you prayed for meets what you've prepared for. The waiting season has matured you. The refining has equipped you. You are stepping into the fulfillment of what God spoke. You don't have to chase it. It's coming alive before you. Every seed of faith you sowed, every act of obedience you gave without seeing results is now bearing fruit. Heaven is releasing what earth has been waiting for. The time of scarcity has ended. The rain has come and the ground is fertile again. But before that overflow comes, there is fire. The kind that doesn't destroy but refines. The kind that burns away what's unnecessary so that what's essential can shine. God's fire isn't punishment, it's purification. It's how He prepares vessels strong enough to hold glory. You've been through seasons of heat wondering if you were being broken, but you were being built. The flame that surrounded you wasn't meant to consume you, it was meant to reveal you. Gold doesn't fear the furnace because it knows the fire only makes it purer. Every trial you've endured has burned away fear, pride, and self-reliance, leaving behind resilience, humility, and clarity. The same fire that hurt you is now the fire that empowers you. You've been tested, and what remains is authentic. You've been refined, and what's left is ready. Out of that refining comes vision. Not vague hope, but divine blueprint. Vision is when heaven gives structure to your faith. When dreams turn into details, God doesn't just inspire, He instructs. The picture He placed in your spirit begins to take shape, forming into plans you can walk out. This vision doesn't come from ambition, but revelation. It's built on truth, anchored in Scripture, and guided by conviction. You begin to see that your calling is not fantasy. It's a framework. The path becomes clearer, not because circumstances have changed, but because your sight you begin to recognize the outlines of destiny. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable because it's not just your idea, it's God's design. When vision meets obedience, faith turns into movement, and as that vision expands, light begins to flood your path. The steps you once took in darkness are now illuminated by understanding. God's word becomes your compass, and His presence becomes your light. You no longer stumble through uncertainty because His direction becomes unmistakable. The road may still have challenges, but now it's clear. What once was foggy has become illuminated. God's light does not remove obstacles, it reveals where to step. You start to walk with confidence, not because you know every turn, but because you trust the one guiding you. Each step becomes sacred, each decision divinely orchestrated. When you walk in His light, your path aligns with His purpose. You are no longer wandering, you are walking in rhythm with destiny. That's where we find Nehemiah, a man who looked at ruins and saw restoration. Where others saw defeat, he saw divine opportunity. The walls of Jerusalem lay in rubble, a symbol of loss and failure. But Nehemiah didn't see destruction. He saw potential. His heart broke for what was broken, and that heartbreak became his calling. He didn't wait for perfect conditions or abundant resources. He started with vision, faith, and prayer. He believed that if God had called him, God would provide for him. Nehemiah's story is not about rebuilding walls, it's about rebuilding faith. He reminds us that what looks ruined can rise again, that what seems too far gone can be restored. He saw what could be, not what was, because his eyes were fixed on what God promised. When Nehemiah began to build, opposition came. Critics mocked, enemies threatened, and fear whispered that the task was impossible. But Nehemiah didn't let the noise stop him. He kept building with one hand on the wall and one hand on his weapon. That's what faith looks like, working while believing, defending while trusting. Every stone he laid was an act of defiance against despair. Every brick was a declaration that God's promises are stronger than human failure. And God honored that faith. The same people who doubted became witnesses of what divine perseverance can accomplish. The walls were rebuilt and the city was restored. That's where you are now, standing in the place between vision and completion, between promise and manifestation. You see areas of your life that still look broken, but God is showing you how to rebuild. He's giving you blueprints, resources, and relationships to restore what seemed lost. Don't wait for perfect timing. Start now. The provision will come as you move. The strength will rise as you build. God is not asking you to have everything figured out. He's asking you to trust that He will supply everything needed along the way. Like Nehemiah, you're not building for applause, you're building for legacy. The world may not see it yet, but heaven does. So open your hands and receive what God is releasing. Stop striving to create what He's already written. Stop chasing blessings that were meant to find you. The future you long for is not in pursuit, it's in surrender. The same fire that tested you is the fire that anoints you. The same ruins you wept over are becoming the foundations of your restoration. The same God who called Nehemiah to rebuild is calling you now to rise, to restore, to reveal His glory through your faith. This is your season of receiving, your season of building, your season of divine alignment. You don't have to fight for it. You just have to stand, believe, and begin. And as you do, heaven will meet you halfway, resources will arrive on time, and the vision that once seemed distant will stand before you fully formed. The walls will rise again. The map will unfold. The light will guide you. The promise will manifest. This is the season where faith becomes foundation and obedience becomes overflow. What God has begun, no power can stop. The call is clear. The vision is alive and the blessing is here. O chosen ones, there is a strength that does not shout, does not demand, and does not need to be seen to be felt. It is the quiet, unshakable power that comes from stillness, the kind of strength that settles deep in your spirit when you stop fighting to control what only God can command. The world has taught us to equate power with noise, motion, and visibility, but heaven operates differently. Heaven values peace over performance and trust over turbulence. True power is not found in striving, but in surrendering. Stillness is not idleness. It is an act of profound faith. It is the declaration that you do not need to prove what God has already promised. It is the confidence that while you rest, He works. Stillness is holy, resistance to the pressure of panic. It says, I trust you enough to wait. When you stop reacting to fear, when you stop moving, just to move, you step into a wisdom that silences the noise. That kind of stillness carries weight. It shifts the atmosphere, draws heaven close, and invites divine intervention. Mary understood the power of such stillness. While the house around her was busy with distraction and activity, she made a simple yet radical choice to sit at the feet of Jesus. She was not being passive, she was being purposeful. Martha worried about service. Mary sought presence. Jesus looked at her and said she had chosen the better part, the one thing that would not be taken from her. That moment revealed an eternal truth. His presence is the portion that satisfies, and no amount of striving can replace it. Mary's stillness was not inactivity, it was intimacy. When you choose presence over productivity, you are choosing the greater reward. In that silence, Mary received revelation. In that posture, she found peace. The lesson is clear. What you achieve by doing cannot compare to what you receive by being with Him. The world will tell you to keep moving, but heaven whispers, be still and know that I am God. When you learn to live from that place of stillness and surrender, you begin to see what anxiety had kept hidden. The doors of heaven are already open. You do not need to push them. You simply need to walk through them when God says the time is right. His blessings are not locked away behind effort or achievement. They wait in obedience, not striving. When God opens a door, it stays open. The scripture declares that no man can shut what he has opened. No circumstance, no failure, no delay can reverse his decree. The doors ordained for you are not meant to be forced. They are meant to be recognized. Some doors you have been knocking on were never yours. Some opportunities you mourned were never meant to hold you. The right door will not require begging, it will require belief. When the time aligns with His will, you will find that the handle turns easily and peace will meet you on the other side. The struggle ends when you understand that open doors are not rewards for effort, they are confirmations of alignment. Sometimes before those doors open, God allows you to face the lion's den. It is the place where faith is tested and peace is proven. Daniel knew what it meant to be surrounded by danger, yet untouched by harm. His strength was not in fighting the lions, but in trusting his God. The same power that shut the mouths of lions is the same power that guards you when you stand firm in faith. You do not have to fear what surrounds you when you know who stands with you. The peace that protected Daniel was not the absence of threat, it was the presence of God in the threat. When your faith remains steady in the middle of fear, you walk out of trials without scars. You step out of the den without bitterness or doubt because your peace was never dependent on safety, it was anchored in trust. True courage is not roaring in the face of danger, it is resting in the assurance that your God reigns. And when you walk with that kind of peace, your life begins to extend beyond the moment. You begin to think not just about surviving, but about leaving something lasting. Faith becomes legacy. Every act of obedience becomes a seed for generations you will never meet. Your prayers outlive you. Your surrender builds foundations your children will stand on. Legacy is not just what you leave behind materially, it is what you leave spiritually, the lessons of trust, forgiveness, endurance, and courage. Every decision to choose faith over fear becomes a map for those watching you. You are not just building a life, you are shaping a lineage. The ripples of your choices will reach far beyond your lifetime. The faith you cultivate in silence today becomes the strength that others will draw from tomorrow. The way you love, serve, and trust God will echo in eternity. Think about Sarah, who waited for a promise that seemed impossible. Time and reason were against her. She was old, tired, and worn by disappointment. But God's word doesn't expire with age, it ripens. When Sarah laughed at the promise, it wasn't disbelief alone, it was exhaustion. Yet even her laughter could not stop what God had spoken. He turned her disbelief into delivery. What looked too late was right on time. That is how divine promises work. They are not bound by your calendar. They move at the pace of your preparation. Sarah's story is a reminder that the impossible is simply what happens when logic tries to explain faith. God waited until her circumstances were barren so that no one could deny His power. When the promise came to pass, it was undeniable that it was the work of His hand. The same is true for you. The longer the wait, the greater the witness. What you thought was over God is only beginning. There is a freedom that comes when you stop fighting for control and start trusting in surrender. So many of us carry the weight of outcomes, trying to plan every turn, protect ourselves from every possibility, and anticipate every threat. But surrender releases that burden. It is not the same as giving up, it is giving in to the one who knows better. True surrender is not passive, it is powerful. It shifts the focus from your limited ability to His limitless grace. When you place your plans, your fears, and your timing into His hands, you make space for miracles. You can't control both the process and the promise. When you release one, you receive the other. That's when you finally breathe again. The anxiety begins to fade. You start to see how light life can be when you stop carrying what was never yours to bear. Jesus said his yoke is easy and his burden light because he never meant for you to carry it all. To surrender is to trade exhaustion for ease, striving for security and fear for freedom. Jonah's life illustrates this truth perfectly. He tried to outrun God, convinced he could escape his calling. But the moment he boarded the wrong ship, the storm began. The storm wasn't punishment, it was redirection. God wasn't angry, he was committed. Jonah's disobedience didn't cancel his destiny, it merely delayed it. Even in rebellion, grace pursued him. The sea that swallowed him became the very thing that delivered him. When Jonah finally surrendered, he was spat out onto purpose. The place of correction became the path of commission. The same is true for you. Even when you run, mercy runs faster. Even when you resist, love remains. God doesn't discard, he redeems. Your surrender is not the end of the story, it's the turning point. The moment you yield is the moment God starts using you again. Surrender is the doorway back to destiny. And when surrender becomes your rhythm, peace becomes your resting place. This peace is not fragile. It does not vanish when life shakes. It stays steady, deep, and sure. It's the peace that lets you rest even when the world trembles. It's not dependent on outcomes or circumstances. It's rooted in trust. This is the kind of peace that allows you to walk through fire and not smell like smoke, to face storms and still smile, to stand in uncertainty and still feel secure. It is the peace that surpasses understanding because it is not built on understanding, it is built on presence. Once you taste that peace, nothing else satisfies. You stop chasing validation. You stop proving your worth. You live lighter, freer, and stronger because you finally know who holds your life. Every truth, every story, every lesson points back to the same eternal pattern. Stillness, presence, open doors, faith under fire, legacy, promise, surrender, they are all connected. Each one leads you deeper into trust. Each one draws you closer to peace. The more you learn to rest in him, the more you realize that movement without direction is just noise. When you choose stillness over panic, obedience over resistance, and surrender over struggle, heaven begins to move in ways you could never force. The doors open without effort, the lions go silent, the promises start unfolding, and your soul begins to live in rhythm with eternity. That is the power of stillness. It quiets the chaos and magnifies your faith. That is the beauty of surrender. It frees you from control and fills you with peace. When you stop striving and start trusting, when you stop running and start resting, you find that everything you were chasing has been waiting for you all along. The blessings you prayed for, the peace you longed for, and the presence you hoped for are all found in the same sacred space, stillness before God and surrender to his will. And in that space, your strength returns, your faith matures, and your spirit finally breathes again. Beloved chosen ones, in the life of every follower of Christ, there arrives a sacred awakening when joy ceases to be something you chase and becomes something that rises within you like light breaking through the clouds. It is not the fragile happiness that fades when circumstances shift. It is a holy current that flows from realizing that what you thought was gone has been found, that what was shattered has been made whole, and that what lay buried is alive again. This is the joy God spoke of, the unshakable kind that no storm can silence and no sorrow can steal. It is the joy of return, the echo of heaven rejoicing as the Father runs toward his child, not with condemnation but with open arms and a celebration prepared in love. The table is set, the music begins, and your name is called, not because you earned it, but because you belong. That is divine joy, fierce, abundant, overflowing beyond measure. And when you finally receive it, when you unwrap that radiant gift, it changes everything about how you see, live, and love. That joy isn't meant to stay private. Real joy is contagious. It spills over, seeps into every word, every act, every moment, touching the lives of others. The kind of joy that comes from God doesn't stop with you, it multiplies through you. It's the joy that strengthens families, heals relationships, and restores faith. It's the sound of laughter. After years of silence, the warmth that returns to a heart once frozen by disappointment. Joy is not just an emotion, it's a weapon. It breaks chains, silences lies, and drives out fear. When you walk in joy, you remind others that hope is still alive. You become a carrier of heaven's atmosphere, a living proof that light can still shine in the darkest places. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more joy. Real, rooted, radiant joy that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. And that brings us to one of the greatest truths of your journey. Your story carries power. Every scar, every tear, every victory and defeat, it all matters. The story you carry is not a record of pain, it's a revelation of purpose. What you've been through wasn't wasted, it was woven. Every moment of struggle became a seed of strength. Your testimony isn't for your own pride, it's for someone else's healing. There's someone right now waiting to hear how you made it through. Waiting to see proof that survival is possible, that faith still works, that God still moves. Don't underestimate the power of your story. You may think it's ordinary, but in God's hands, it's extraordinary. It can reach hearts that sermons never will. When you speak about what God has done, you release freedom into the atmosphere. Your story becomes a bridge that leads others out of despair into hope. Look at Job. He was a man who lost everything, his wealth, his family, his health, and yet refused to curse God. His story wasn't one of instant deliverance, but of enduring faith. He sat in ashes, but he never let bitterness rule his spirit. And when restoration came, it didn't just return what he lost, it multiplied it. Job received double for everything the enemy took. That's what happens when you remain faithful in the fire. The ashes become the soil for new life. Job's restoration was not a reward for perfection. It was a reflection of perseverance. God didn't just restore his possessions, he restored his purpose. That same God is still writing stories of redemption today. The suffering you've endured has been forging a testimony that will carry more power than you realize. When your breakthrough comes, and it won't just lift you, it'll lift everyone connected to you. That's the purpose of testimony. It's not just to tell people what God did, it's to show them who God is. Your story is a mirror of his mercy, a record of his faithfulness, a soundtrack of his grace. When people hear what he brought you through, they'll begin to believe that he can bring them through too. You become a living bridge, a connection point between despair and deliverance. The words of your life are stronger than any sermon you could preach because they're written in fire and tears and endurance and gratitude. Every page of your journey carries an anointing for someone else's breakthrough. You don't have to embellish it or polish it. Just tell it with honesty and humility. God uses authenticity, not perfection, to heal hearts. That's why Jesus said, your light cannot be hidden. It's not supposed to be. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to shine. The light of God inside you is not a candle, it's a blaze. You might have tried to dim it to stay small so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable, but this is not the season for shrinking. This is the season for shining. When God ignites a light in you, it's not for decoration, it's for direction. People are drawn to it. They find safety in it. Your light shows the way home for those who have lost their way. Don't cover it. Don't apologize for it. Don't wait until you feel worthy of it. That light was placed in you for a purpose, to pierce the darkness, to bring clarity, to announce that hope is alive. Think about the disciples. They weren't scholars, kings, or heroes by the world's standards. They were fishermen, tax collectors, and ordinary men with ordinary flaws. But when the light of Christ touched them, they became world changers. They carried his presence into places that had never known it. They turned the world upside down, not because of their titles, but because of their transformation. Their light didn't come from education or position, it came from revelation. The same power that burned in them burns in you. You carry that same light, the kind that cannot be extinguished by opposition or fear. You may feel small, but your light is mighty because its source is divine. When you walk in it, you become part of a movement that began with the resurrection and still echoes today. And now the promises of God that you've been holding on to are about to become visible. The time for waiting is shifting into the time for witnessing. What you've believed in your heart is about to manifest in your hands. The invisible is about to become undeniable. The word God spoke over your life is breaking through the soil of delay and rising into reality. It's not just hope anymore, it's harvest. Every prayer, every act of faith, every night you cried and still believed, it's all coming together. The fulfillment of his promise is not a possibility. It's an appointment. It's been written in heaven and timed perfectly for earth. You won't have to chase it. It will find you ready, steady, and standing in faith. Hannah knew what that felt like. She prayed for years, weeping in the temple, misunderstood and overlooked. But God heard her. And when he answered, he didn't just give her a son, he gave her Samuel, a prophet who would change a nation. Her pain became purpose. Her waiting became a womb for revival. That's the power of divine timing. When God fulfills a promise, it's never small, it's strategic. The answer to your prayer isn't just for you, it's for everyone who will be touched by your obedience. Hannah's joy didn't end with her, it began with her. And that's how your joy will move too. It will spread. It will inspire. It will awaken others to the truth that God still answers, still restores, still multiplies. So let that joy rise. Let that light shine. Let that story be told. This is not the season to hide your radiance or silence your testimony. This is the season to live out loud what God has done. You are living proof that joy comes in the morning, that faith still works, that promises still stand. You are the evidence that God finishes what he starts. Every pain you endured has been turned into purpose. Every tear has watered the soil of your testimony. Now your joy is the fruit. Your story is the bridge. Your light is the proof. And your life, your ordinary, beautiful, redeemed life, is the promise made visible. Beloved, chosen ones, the moment God calls you to rise is not because you are the most prepared or the strongest, but because you are the one willing to listen. The world waits for those who dare to obey. And in that still trembling moment of obedience, everything begins to change. Deborah's story begins in such a moment. She was not born into royalty, nor did she lead through force or status. Her strength came from an unshakable connection to God's voice. She was a prophetess, a judge, a woman of conviction, living in a time when faith had grown dim. The people of Israel were lost in fear and oppression, but Deborah refused to remain silent. When God spoke, she stood. When others hesitated, she acted. Her authority was not rooted in hierarchy, it was rooted in heaven. She led from revelation, not reputation. Deborah reminds us that true courage is not about the absence of fear, but the presence of conviction. It is the audacity to move forward when everything around you says retreat. She teaches that leadership born of faith does not demand applause or assurance, it requires trust. When she called Barak to battle and declared, "This is the day the Lord has given," she was not repeating what she saw with her eyes, but what she heard in her spirit. Deborah's voice echoes through time, calling us to lead wherever we are planted, not with dominance, but with divine dependence. The kind of faith Deborah carried flows naturally into peace for faith, and peace are two sides of the same surrender. Real peace is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of God within it. The world chases a peace that comes from control, from fixing, arranging, and understanding, but the peace of God cannot be earned or engineered. It settles in the soul that has learned to trust without proof. Peace is not when the storm ends. It is when you stop fearing the waves because you know who commands them. The peace of God is an anchor, not an escape. It does not pull you away from reality, it steadies you in it. When you live from that place, chaos loses its voice. You stop reacting to life's noise and start resting in heaven's rhythm. Peace is not a fragile calm that shatters under pressure. It is the steady confidence that says, "My God is here and I am held." When everything shakes, peace whispers, "Be still." It is not silence from the world. It is stillness in your spirit. And when you learn to live in that peace, you realize you no longer have to chase safety because you are carried by it. This kind of peace always leads to abundance. Because when the soul is at rest, the heart is free to give. The abundance of God is never about accumulation. It is about flow. It is the rhythm of grace moving through surrendered hands. When Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish and lifted them before heaven, he was teaching a principle deeper than provision. He was showing us that multiplication begins in trust. The boy who offered his small meal didn't know the crowd would be fed. He simply gave what he had. That moment became the stage for a miracle. God doesn't need your plenty to produce abundance. He needs your willingness to release. The loaves were ordinary, but in the hands of Jesus, they became eternal evidence of a divine principle. When you give what's limited to the limitless one, it never runs out. The same is true for every area of life. Your kindness, your faith, your time, your generosity, when offered to God, become multiplied blessings that ripple far beyond you. The miracle of multiplication begins with gratitude and continues with surrender. It is not a formula for wealth, but a revelation of divine sufficiency. When you let go of the need to hold, God releases what he has been waiting to pour. You move from scarcity to overflow, from fear to freedom, from counting what's missing to celebrating what's possible. When you live in that abundance, truth begins to anchor everything else. Truth is not a collection of facts. It is the person of Jesus Christ. It is the light that reveals who you really are and what you were created for. Truth defines, refines, and sets free. The world tries to rename you with its labels: failure, unworthy, forgotten, but truth restores your original name, chosen. Truth tells you that you are not your past, not your pain, not your mistakes. Truth says you are redeemed, restored, and rebuilt by the grace of God. To live in truth is to stand on a foundation that cannot be shaken. Truth has a way of finding you even when you hide. It comes not to condemn, but to call you home. Truth exposes lies, not to humiliate, but to heal. When Jesus told Peter that he would deny him, Peter swore it would never happen. But when the rooster crowed and his heart broke, truth met him in his failure. Jesus later sought him out, not to shame him, but to restore him. He asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" Each question undoing a denial. And with each answer, Peter's identity was rewritten. The one who had failed became the foundation. Truth transformed his shame into strength. It did not erase his past, it redefined it. That is what truth does. It takes the rubble of regret and builds something new. It sets you free, not from memory, but from mastery. Your past no longer controls your future. Once you have stood in truth, you find that hope begins to rise. Hope is the heartbeat of faith. It is the quiet determination to believe even when you cannot see. Hope is not wishful thinking, it is spiritual certainty. It's the conviction that even if the promise is delayed, it's not denied. Hope is what kept Noah building when the skies were clear and the ground was dry. The people laughed, called him foolish, accused him of wasting his life on a dream, but Noah kept hammering. Every swing of his hand was a sermon, every nail a declaration. I trust God's word more than man's sight. Hope doesn't need applause, it needs endurance. It builds even when understanding is absent. It waits without complaint. It prepares without evidence. Noah's hope was not built on the forecast, but on faith. He didn't need to see rain, he needed to remember the promise. And when the flood came, the ark became the proof that hope never fails. The same God who told Noah to build is the same God telling you to keep going, You may be in a season where your obedience looks foolish to others, but that is often where faith is strongest. You're not building for validation. You're building for vision. Hope makes you resilient. It keeps your hands steady and your heart focused. The laughter of others can't stop a builder who knows God's voice. And when the rain finally falls, the ones who doubted will see the wisdom in your obedience. Hope doesn't just sustain you, it transforms you. It moves you from survival to significance. Hope teaches you to look at ruins and see resurrection. It tells you that every ending is a beginning in disguise. The same spirit that whispered to Noah is whispering to you. Keep building, keep believing, keep moving. The blueprint may not make sense yet, but the flood of fulfillment is coming. And when it arrives, you'll see that the waiting was not wasted. Every delay was preparation. Every disappointment was divine redirection. Hope turns pain into purpose, and waiting into worship. It fuels faith when feelings fade. It's the divine reminder that God has not forgotten you, and his promises are not on pause, they are in process. All of these courage, peace, abundance, truth, and hope are threads in the same divine tapestry. They are not separate lessons, but layers of one transformation. Courage teaches you to move. Peace teaches you to rest. Abundance teaches you to give. Truth teaches you to stand. Hope teaches you to continue. Together they form the rhythm of a life anchored in God's will. When courage rises, peace steadies it. When truth confronts, hope comforts. When abundance flows, it multiplies faith in others. The believer's life is not a straight path, but a woven journey of these eternal elements, each revealing a different facet of God's character through you. Deborah teaches you to lead. Jesus teaches you to rest. The boy with the loaves teaches you to give. Peter teaches you to rise after failure. And Noah teaches you to build with endurance. Each story is not separate, it is part of yours. You carry Deborah's courage when you choose obedience over comfort. You carry Christ's peace when you stop fighting to control outcomes. You carry the boy's faith when you give what you have and watch God multiply it. You carry Peter's redemption when you step out of shame and walk again in purpose. You carry Noah's hope when you keep building despite doubt. You are not reading their stories, you are living them. Their faith is the same faith that fuels you now. Their God is your God. Their victories foreshadow yours. This is what it means to live as one chosen by God, to rise, to rest, to give, to stand, to build. You are not called to replicate the world's strength. You are called to reveal heaven's. Your courage is not noise, it's obedience. Your peace is not passivity, it's power. Your abundance is not greed, it's generosity. Your truth is not opinion, it's revelation. Your hope is not fantasy, it's faith in motion. Everything God is shaping in you is preparing you for a season of divine impact. You will lead with grace, live with peace, give with joy, stand with truth, and build with hope. And as you do, your life will become the sermon, your existence, a testimony. There is a world waiting to see what faith looks like in motion. You are that evidence. You are the modern Deborah, the living Peter, the enduring Noah. You are the vessel through which heaven still writes its story. So let courage rise, let peace dwell, let generosity flow, let truth ground, and let hope build. The storm will come, the critics will speak, but when it's over, you will still be standing stronger, wiser, and radiant. Because the God who called you to rise is the same God who walks with you through every step. And when He is your foundation, nothing can move you. Finally, as we come to the end of today's message, my dear friend, thank you for staying with me until the very end of today's message. If what you've heard has inspired you or brought peace to your heart, I want to say thank you. Your presence here matters more than you know. Every prayer, every word of encouragement, every time you like, share, or leave a comment, it all helps us keep spreading God's light to hearts that need it most. We're deeply grateful for every person who walks this journey with us, because together we're building something bigger than ourselves, a community that carries hope, faith, and the love of Christ into the world. So if this message touched you, take a moment to share it with someone who might need it today. Subscribe to stay connected, and let's keep growing in faith side by side. Your support, whether through a prayer, a kind word, or a simple act of sharing, helps us reach farther, shine brighter, and continue the mission of bringing peace to every corner we can. May God's grace cover you, His strength uphold you, and His blessings follow you in all that you do. Amen.